You're listening to the third segment of our four-part series, Using Your Weeds, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Jim and I. How have you been?
I've been wonderful. Last week we touched a bit on different weeds, and you had mentioned evening primrose, and I'd like for you to go back to that a little bit if you don't mind. I have a fourth generation mother plant in my yard, and she's so happy and spreading her babies, and I'd love to know what to do with it other than admire her in the moonlight.
All right. Well, evening primrose, Oenoceria biens, is a biennial plant. Now, last time we were together, and the first time, that was the first time we were together, actually, and the first time, because this is the third time now, talking about weeds, we talked about how many weeds are annuals, that they come up, just sprout up, have their flowers, have their seeds, and die. But biennials take 2 years to do that. And there's pretty important biennials. Burdock is a biennial. Mullein is a biennial. Carrots are biennials. And evening primrose is a biennial. And there are, of course, many other biennials as well. And all the biennials act in a similar way. The seed sprouts, and the plant makes a big effort to push a deep taproot down. And then leaves come out. And the leaves stay close to the ground. And they grow out from the top of that root, which continues to lengthen and to thicken throughout that first year. It's called a taproot. And the carrot is a very typical shape of the taproot. It's bigger at top and comes down, tapers down as it goes down through the ground. And all of the leaves come right out of the top of that and lay flat on the ground. And flat on the ground is basal, like at the base. And the fact that they come out of one central spot means they're a rosette. So they form a basal rosette. As a matter of fact, they form really beautiful patterns in the first year if you look right down over them. And that taproot contains a wealth of nourishment and sometimes even medicinal things. In the evening primrose, the root has actually been eaten. Let's see what kind of recipe they have in this book for that. Young evening primrose roots can be eaten raw in salads or boiled to remove their bitterness and then added to soups or casseroles. Only use first-year roots. The second-year roots are tough and stringy. Evening primrose tea. 1 teaspoon dried evening primrose leaves and stems finely chopped. 1 cup boiling water. Take this on a day when you feel a cold coming on. Evening primrose balm. And basically what they do is they take the evening primrose leaves and stems and soak it in oil for about 6 weeks. And I would do this with the flowers and seed pods as well. I would wait until the whole plant was flowering and seeding and just soak that in oil for about 6 weeks and then use that oil as a wonderful soothing balm for skin rashes and to help deal with eczema. And so our thanks to Guy Stern, Australian Weeds, a source of natural food and medicine, for giving us all these great ideas. And she has Oenoceria with coconut and black mustard. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And then just a simple sauteed primrose root. So a lot of interesting things. As I said in our first time together, eating wild foods is becoming very popular again. As people, first of all, feel pressure, economic pressure, and thus turn to the free foods around them. But secondly, as people become more locavores, there's the local food movement, where people are saying, let me eat more locally, let me join a CSA, let me know, what is grown right here. And as more and more people are opening up gardens in the United States, we are at, I think, an almost all-time high for gardeners in the United States. It's very, very thrilling to many people throughout the kind of, eat well movement, I might call it, that so many people are in their gardens, and so there's a plethora of wonderful wild food books. I just noticed the other day that one of my past apprentices, Dina Falcone, just has a new wild food cookbook out, and very excited about that. So lots of sources besides this particular book that I'm looking at where you can find recipes for using the root of your evening primrose. Now, I want to focus our time together in our third session here with weeds that we can use the flowers of. But before we do that, I want to kind of talk about one plant that I didn't actually have a chance to talk about last time, and that's because it's not a weed in Australia, but it certainly is a weed in North America, and that is garlic mustard. The garlic mustard at this point is possibly one of the most hated weeds around, although there are a couple of others vying for the title. One of the reasons is because it is considered a very invasive plant. And when you see the huge amounts of garlic mustard covering roadsides everywhere, you do indeed wonder what native plants might have grown there if the garlic mustard wasn't there. Garlic mustard seeds exude, when they sprout, a poison that prevents all other seeds in the soil from sprouting. So you get almost pure stands of garlic mustard. And so it becomes, quite a problem in people's minds. And there are actually, squads of people who go out to remove the garlic mustard. But I want to tell you that garlic mustard, like all mustards, is a powerhouse of food and medicine. So once again, let's take the gardener's best revenge on this plant, and that is to use it, use it, use it, use it. Now, we were just talking about biennials, that evening primrose is a biennial, and garlic mustard is a biennial too. So what do we say about the evening primrose? We said, well, during the first year, especially at the end of the first year, when that taproot has been fed by that basal rosette, all spring, all summer, and all fall, we get down into the late fall, then that root, all of the roots of the biennial plants then are fleshy and filled with carbohydrate, and in the case of garlic mustard, filled with the same compound that makes horseradish horseradish. As a matter of fact, it's often called wild horseradish. Now, granted, the roots of garlic mustard are not going to be as big as a horseradish root. A horseradish root, as you know, is bigger than a carrot. And garlic mustard, especially if it's growing as a weed, is not going to have any roots that are bigger than your thumb. But just persevere, because there's a lot of it. So dig up a lot of roots, or pull up a lot of roots. Remember, at this point, we've got the basal rosette. We just have the leaves growing up from the root. We don't have that big, tall flower stalk of the garlic mustard that most people associate with the garlic mustard. So I dig up that root, and I throw it into my food preparation machine or my blender with vinegar, and I just grind it up. If you have a grinder that you use that's already established in your kitchen, that's probably the best thing to do, is to grind it in a grinder, but I don't, and I have other little machines that I use, and that works very well for me. I have found that this homemade horseradish keeps really well. I have been surprised because, I often buy horseradish from the supermarket. And I often wind up throwing half the jar away because within 6 to 8 months it just doesn't taste very horseradishy at all. But the horseradish that I make from the garlic mustard, this is Allegeria officinalis, from the roots of the garlic mustard, keeps it zing, it's woo, for up to a year until I'm ready to go out and do it again. This is often a kind of wintertime treat. I won't harvest until it has almost gotten too cold to harvest, and then I'll go out and get those roots, and they seem to have just a real sharp zing. Or, I live in an area, although it's cold in the Catskill Mountains, we can get that February thaw, and when we get that February thaw, I'm out there harvesting those garlic mustard roots. Now, the more roots that I harvest, the less garlic mustard plants there are. However, I must say that when the seed sprouts, I really like the greens of this plant. I use a lot of garlic mustard greens in my salads. You could almost say it is a salad's mainstay. But they're also really good cooked. If you're really intent on getting rid of the garlic mustard in any one area, then just cut off all of those leaves. Don't get the petioles. They're a little tough I just cut off all the leaves and cook them up. Saute them a little bit, throw a little Tamaria water in there, clap a lid on that pan, and cook them, cook them, cook them. Okay, it's a bitter green, but it's not even as bitter as dandelion. It is good. And if you don't like it hot, just refrigerate it, add some raw garlic, chopped up fine to it, and I guarantee you will like those garlic mustard greens. Take the gardener's best revenge and eat your garlic mustard greens. Yes, we do put the flowers in salad as well. And one year, the apprentices and I harvested garlic mustard seed because we just wanted to kind of see what that would be like. And we found that the seed pods shattered pretty easily. It was kind of difficult to harvest. And we had a lot of seed pods and in with the seed, and that was kind of a mess to try to pick it apart. And that the seed itself, well, it just really wasn't that tasty. We didn't really like it as an alternative to actual mustard seed. So I don't necessarily recommend harvesting the garlic mustard seed, but the root and the leaves, yum, yum, yum. So let's look at some flowers that would be growing as weeds in our garden and how we might use those flowers and what kind of segue into and look at seeds at the same time, because of course the flowers become the seeds, don't they? And then our fourth time together, our last weedy session together, we will be looking at roots. And this is, of course, the most medicinal part of many of these plants, which are improving the soil, giving us delicious and very nutritious food, providing medicine for us, beauty for us, wildlife habitat, as well as diet plants. So many things that the weeds do for us. Now, I want to push this just a little bit and call linden trees a weed. They're not really, but they're not really cultivated either, because if left to their own devices, they would be just fine without us. Linden trees thrive in city environments, and they are widely used by landscapers. So you are actually going to find linden very easily if you live anywhere in the temperate zone. And they do grow wild throughout Europe as well as throughout North America. But as I said, the easiest place to find them is to simply drive to your local mall or look for the Linden Avenue nearest to you. Linden flowers are a favorite medicine of mine. And Jim and I, you were saying that you've really been enjoying the nourishing herbal infusions that you've been using, the nettle infusion and the oat straw infusion and the red clover infusion. And so I hope that you will add linden to your rotation of infusions. Linden, first and foremost, in my mind, is an anti-inflammatory. And we don't need to have a problem to make use of an anti-inflammatory. Certainly, if we have sore joints or if there's inflammation in the blood vessels, an anti-inflammatory will help reduce that inflammation. But most of the problems that most of us have actually are the long-term results of chronic low-level inflammation, not enough inflammation to really make us think we need anything, but enough inflammation to make us kind of maybe stiff or maybe sore or maybe not move so much or maybe not think so well, because inflammation in the brain actually leads to dementia and possibly even Alzheimer's. Inflammation can actually lead to cancer in a great number of cases, and we found this out by noticing that women who had so much pain that they had to take non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on a regular basis slashed their rates of breast cancer. So we've come to understand that cancer itself can be the consequence of inflammation. So linden flower infusion is a fabulous way to help cut down on inflammation in your body. And this is one of the things that I often point out to the apprentices, that many times when they come here, having come from eating even a healthy diet, they have this low-level inflammation in their body, so that when they're bitten by a bug or tangled with poison ivy, there's enormous swelling and itching that occurs because those are inflammatory things happening. And as they drink the nourishing herbal infusions, as they make linden a regular part of their diet, as they eat a non-inflammatory diet, they find that their reactivity to these kinds of things goes down. This is happening throughout their bodies. It's happening in their blood vessels. It's happening in their joints. It's happening in their veins. We can't see it there, but we can see it on our skin. We can see how much less our skin reacts to those outside ouches that the summer seems to bring. And linden flower infusion is one of the great anti-inflammatories. I use half an ounce of linden flowers, and I do try to get the whole linden flowers. Sometimes you'll find at the store where you want to buy it carries cut linden, and you probably won't like what you make from cut linden because it contains a slippery substance, and that slippery substance becomes very slippery indeed when you make even a tea from the cut up linden. So do see if your store can get the whole linden for you, or harvest your own linden. You know, there are, I think over 200 YouTubes now of me and my granddaughter Monica Jean, or me and the apprentices, harvesting things and preparing things. So you can just go to YouTube and you can say YouTube Susan Weed Linden, and right there you will find a sweet little video of me and the apprentices harvesting linden in a shopping mall. And you see all the people walking past and talking to us, and we're saying, yes, this is linden, yes. Safe enough even for premature infants. It's safe for anybody of any age. Pregnant women, yes. Lactating women, yes. No poisons in it. Safe, gentle, smooth, easy, sweet, wonderful, marvelous linden flower infusion. Half an ounce of the whole dried linden flowers, which includes a kind of green part that looks like a leaf, but it isn't, in a quart of boiling water, in a jar. Steep that overnight, strain it out, and drink that over the course of the next day or two. You will love the way that linden brings more zest and more ease to your life. Is it a weed? Well, it's not a weed that you're going to find growing in your garden. But on the other hand, those of you who live in the cities, I want you to know that these helpful plants are everywhere. Let's start from the bottom end of our list here in our Australian weeds, a source of natural food and medicine, which is as good a list of any of the wonderful weeds that we're most likely to find out and about. And that last weed, as you recall, is yarrow. And I use quite a bit of yarrow flower. I tincture the yarrow flowers. I wait until the yarrow comes into bloom, and I cut off the top of the yarrow plant, which includes the stalk, the leaves, and the flowers. And I like to do that as soon as it comes into flower as possible. Now, if you are growing yarrow in your garden, pay attention here. It is only the wild white yarrow that can be used. The cultivars of yarrow, which are red or yellow or orange, pretty colors and sturdy plants, and they're so drought resistant. This is a true weed. Yarrow will grow in the roughest kinds of conditions. And so it's a gardener's dream, of course, but do not use those. Don't use any color yarrow except the wild white one. Okay, if you're growing it and it's white, you're absolutely fine with it, but the colored ones have lots of volatile oils in them and are not so good for you, so leave it be. This tincture of the flowers of yarrow can be used in so many different ways, but let me tell you, especially because we're in the middle of summer here, one of my favorite ways to use this is as a bug repellent spray. Now, I got onto this because I read that the U.S. Army was testing out various plants to see if they could actually repel insects. And they found two that were about as effective as DEET. They do have to be applied more frequently, but while they're active as active, and they repel as well as the harshest chemical known. And those plants are catnip, Nepoticateria, and yarrow, Achillea millefolium. So I put this tincture of yarrow flowers with the stalk and the leaves, the little leaf, into a spray bottle, and I spray it on me when I'm out. I spray it on me to keep the mosquitoes away. I spray it on my ankles to keep takes away. I love my yarrow spray, and if I get cut or injured, I just spray some yarrow spray on it too, because another name for yarrow besides Achillea millefolium is soldier's woundwort. This is one great plant when it comes to injuries. It stops bleeding. Julia de Berkeley Levy, one of the elder herbalists no longer with us, said that the gypsies used to use yarrow if somebody's arm was torn off by a horse. I don't even want to imagine what could happen to have your arm torn off by a horse, but they said they just got yarrow and stuffed it into the wound and stopped the bleeding immediately. I have certainly seen it stop a lot of bleeding. Suppose that your bleeding is from your gums. A lot of people, as they age, find that they do indeed have gum disease, and when they brush their teeth, there's some bleeding there. Try yarrow tincture as your dentifrice rather than toothpaste. Use yarrow tincture, or if you don't like that, use your regular toothpaste, and put a teaspoon of yarrow tincture into some water and use that as a mouthwasher. Just rinse your mouth out with that teaspoonful of yarrow tincture. Using a lot of yarrow this way, aren't we? Good. You'll need to find some yarrow and make your own tincture. It's simple. It's easy to do. You can find YouTubes where I am making yarrow tincture, as well as a wonderful online course that I have on herbal first aid, where I show you how to make yarrow tincture. Wild carrot is a plant whose flower is very beautiful, and most people recognize it. And that flower is absolutely edible, quite delicious. So are the leaves. And we use the leaves in salad. We use the flowers in salad. As somebody said, for 10 years, they were talking about the potato salad that I brought to the church picnic, decorated with Queen Anne's lace blossoms, because wild carrot is also called Queen Anne's lace blossom. And as that flower stops flowering, it makes seeds. And the seeds of Queen Anne's lace, the seeds of wild carrot, are one of the most effective natural birth controls known. One of my past apprentices, Robin Rose Bennett, and I say that's 2 N's and 2 T's. She says, and 2 E's too. I say, yeah, but the E's are separated. B-E-N-N-E-T-T. Robin Rose Bennett is really the wild carrot seed queen. And if you want to know more about wild carrot seed and how to use wild carrot seed effectively, check out what Robin Rose Bennett has to say about wild carrot. White clover, red clover, all of the clover flowers can be eaten. Yes, even the melalotes that we talked about before, the Melalotus officinalis, and the Melalotus alba, all of those can be safely eaten, but not in quantity, just a little, please, in your salad for decoration, for pretty. Very, very nice. I had a salad today with white clover in it, because that was the clover that was available where I was. I also have a wonderful little recipe for a red clover soup, and basically you just make a vegetable soup and you add about a cup of red clover blossoms to your vegetable soup, and that makes it a red clover soup. Wonderful. Wonderful plant. Red clover, of course, is one of our big medicines, and Jim and I mentioned that of the infusions that she's drinking nettle infusion, oat straw infusion, and red clover infusion. And, of course, I drink red clover infusion at least a quart a week, and this is because red clover is the world's leading cancer preventative herb. So all through the growing season, the apprentices and I harvest red clover so long as it isn't raining. And we dry that red clover, and we take 1 full ounce. That's a lot of dried red clover blossoms. A 1/4 pound of fresh red clover blossoms dried down to 1 ounce. That 1 full ounce in a quart jar, fill it to the top with boiling water. Put a lid on it. Let it steep 4 hours or overnight if you make it lasting at night. Strain it out. Squeeze the red clover to get all the good out of it, and then drink that quart of red clover infusion over the next day or 2, not only to help prevent cancer, but also to deal with cancer should you have it. Now, you know, red clover has suddenly gotten some pretty bad press from some prestigious websites. And in trying to track down who actually posted that information, we have not been able to find any herbalist who will admit to having said that red clover is unsuitable for women who with a diagnosis of breast cancer. In fact, exactly the opposite is true. And if you want to read more about it, please do check out Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way, and New Menopausal Years of the Wise Woman Way, where I go into a lot of detail about what's in red clover and why it is not a threat to the health of a woman who has been diagnosed with breast cancer. Red clover is one of my favorite nourishing herbal infusions and a common weed throughout. Oh, sweet Violet. We love you, Violet. Violet flowers in your salad. What could be better? Well, I guess what could be better is violet flower honey. Wait until you find a whole patch of violets in bloom and pick those flowers, put them in a jar, pour honey over it. Wait 6 weeks. Now you have violet flower honey. You put that on your face. You will see. It is going to turn back the clock by 10 years. Violet flower honey is amazing. First of all, honey is a humectant. That means it draws moisture to your skin. And violet is a softener. It's a decurient. It just softens it. It builds up the collagen again. The honey pulls that moisture. Whoa! You look great. And I bet you're saying, but what about the poor violets? Well, guess what? Those beautiful violets with all those colors that grow in our lawns and grow in our gardens, those aren't the reproductive part of the plant. The reproductive part of the plant is a green flower held under the leaves later in the year. So go ahead and pick those violets, throw them in your salad, make violet ice cubes. Oh, there's so many things that we can do with violets. They're so pretty. And yes, the jump ups and the pansies, which are just cultivated cousins of violets, can be used just like violet as well. Do you remember back a long time ago, and there was a book called Please Don't Eat the Daisies? But, oh, what a bad title, because really the daisies are edible. She should have said, please don't eat the buttercups. Daisy flowers, like Queen Anne's lace flowers, make a, oh my gosh, they'll never stop talking about it at the church bazaar. If you bring in your salad decorated with daisies, and they are loaded with vitamin A, they are so good for you. I do decorate the salad with whole daisies, but I suggest that people kind of, break it into pieces before they put it actually into their mouth. Now, we mentioned nasturtium, and of course, nasturtium has a very spicy and amazing flower. Much of digestion actually begins with looking at the food, and looking at the food has a profound effect on appetite. And interestingly enough, we find that people whose food looks really pretty tend to eat less food. That it's when your food is all kind of bland and gray and doesn't really have much texture or color, we just eat more because we're kind of bored. We're eating out of boredom, and the food is boring, so we're eating more food. Throwing a few nasturtium blossoms into your salad, woohoo! That really spices up everything. Beautiful color and a great, great taste. Mallow flowers, and we talked about using the mallow leaves. These are the malvas, the Malvaceae. Well, there's some very big flowers in this family, and they aren't necessarily your weeds. The weedy mallows do indeed tend to be rather small, like Malva neglecta. And you can certainly eat Malva neglecta flowers, but they're kind of small and a little tedious to pick. You can eat Malva neglecta seeds as well, and they're nice and they're chewy. And you can eat Malva neglecta leaves, but all in all, this is not a really big plant. There's a musk mallow that will often grow wild, and you can eat the flowers of that. And it's a bigger flower. It's like 4 to 6 times bigger, so quite a bit bigger flower. But I mean, there's some really big flowers in this family, the Malvaceae. And like the linden, they are not so likely to show up as a weed in your garden, although I actually do have several linden trees which are growing as weeds in my garden because I have a big linden tree which drops its seeds everywhere. These are Rose of Sharon and hibiscus. Rose of Sharon, if you are in the northeast, is that tall shrub which blooms late in the summer and just covered in beautiful flowers. And of course the hibiscus, we all know the hibiscus. Think about the hibiscus shirt from Hawaii, right? And you have this 5-petal flower with the petals kind of flaring back and this long female part. It's the female part that's sticking right out of the center of the flower with this really big knobby thing on the end of it, and then all these little knobs, all around the kind of stalk down the lower part of the stalk. But those little knobs at the lower part of the stalk, believe it or not, are the male parts, which have given up their entire independence. They're just stuck onto the female part here. But it makes that very distinctive hibiscus silhouette, shall we say, with the 5 petals and this big long, almost like a tongue sticking out of it. So hibiscus in its range, where its worm will get quite weedy, especially if you plant any of them. And the Rose of Sharon can, in fact, get quite weedy too. Again, it's a gardener's dream plant because it is so easy to use and to grow and use the flowers. All hibiscus, all Malvaceae make great flowers. Gemini, I can't believe it. We're out of time again. Come and visit me at SusanWeed.com. Thanks for helping me return herbal medicine to the hands of people where it belongs. Thanks, Gemini.
Thanks, Susan. This completes the 3rd segment of our 4-part series, Using Your Weeds with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.